Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into the incredibly complex geopolitical and, honestly, deeply human battle over who truly owns Jerusalem. This is a fierce debate, and it was intensely reignited when Donald Trump controversially recognized the city as Israel's capital. That move shifted international policy and threw a massive spotlight right back onto a deeply divided population. So, why does this one single city command the attention of the entire world? And what can the people actually living there teach us about the true nature of conflict? Let's get right into it.
So, who truly owns Jerusalem? It's kind of the ultimate question, right? It constantly disrupts the fragile status quo of the Middle East, and it sparks endless debates in the halls of global power. But to really grasp what's happening here, we have to look totally beyond those global headlines. We need to step away from the abstract international politics and bring our attention right down to the actual breathing streets of the city itself.
Because when you do that, the geographic and political divide on the ground is just incredibly stark. In West Jerusalem, you've got the established home of Israel's robust government infrastructure. This is where you'll find the Israeli parliament and the Supreme Court. It's the functional center of the state. But just cross over into East Jerusalem and the landscape completely shifts. This predominantly Arab side of the city holds intense Palestinian aspirations for a future capital, right alongside the deeply contested, ancient religious sites of the Old City. It's literally two completely different realities sharing a single municipal boundary.
Section 1. Competing yearnings. Two valid human needs clashing in one city.
To really understand why this conflict is so historically entrenched, we're going to use a brilliant framework from a neutral observer stationed right there at Mount Zion, Father Nicodemus Schnabel. He points out something totally critical that often gets completely lost in the loud political noise. He says that Palestinians and Israelis have equal claims to sovereignty over the Holy Land. Rather than this just being some cold battle over tracts of land or historical documents, both sides have profoundly understandable deep yearnings. When we stop looking at this purely as a real estate dispute and start viewing it through the lens of human necessity, the whole conflict takes on a very different shape.
Think of it like two existential needs sitting on opposite sides of a scale. On one side, you have the Israeli longing for security. This is the need for a safe haven, an absolute sanctuary from immense historical trauma and the very real threat of global anti-Semitism. And then, on the exact other side, we have the Palestinian longing for freedom. They're seeking the fundamental right to self-determination without having to live their daily lives constrained behind massive walls and military checkpoints. These are two incredibly powerful, deeply human desires forced to compete for the exact same space.
Which brings us to Section 2, the lived realities, voices from the divided city.
Let's step away from the high-level philosophy for a second and listen to the people on the ground. For Jewish Israelis like tour guide Shmuel, the city is already an undisputed, unified capital. And honestly, he remains genuinely optimistic about everyday coexistence. He says they are living together, and Palestinians and Israelis are even intermarrying. Working in tourism, he sees people side by side, cooperating daily, and notes that day-to-day life can actually be highly functional.
But we have to juxtapose that directly with the experience of Palestinian anthropologist Ali Clabo. For Ali, whose family traces its roots in the city all the way back to the 14th century, the daily reality is entirely different. He argues that the land has been annexed in Jerusalem and the people have been completely overlooked. He calls this a classical case of historical denial and historical revisionism. Through his eyes, the native people and their centuries of deep connection to the city are just being actively erased by the political establishment.
Now, tying back to that visceral yearning for security we talked about earlier, we have Israeli journalist Sarah. Following violent incidents on the streets, like stabbings at the central bus station, she strongly believes that Israel is a haven for Jews everywhere because they really need it. Looking at rising hostility globally, she emphasizes that there simply has to be a place for Jews to come to where they can feel safe and protected.
Meanwhile, the lived experience for someone like Mohammed, a Palestinian musician living in the UN-administered Shufat refugee camp, is incredibly bleak. He points out that Jerusalem is a very violent place for children. The physical separation is so severe that, as he puts it, you have a whole new generation of young people that have no idea what Jerusalem even looks like. It really forces us to ask, how do you build any kind of shared future when the next generation is growing up totally physically isolated from one another?
That leads us right into Section 3, Life Behind the Wall, the physical toll of a divided city.
So what does this division actually look like when you zoom in on the specific neighborhoods? Well, the daily reality functions a lot more like a pressure cooker than a normal municipality.
We're talking about the construction of a massive security wall that actively isolates Arab neighborhoods. This is coupled with what observers describe as demographic tampering designed to maintain a Jewish majority. On the ground, there is heightened suspicion leading to constant searches and the harassment of young Arabs. And at the same time, prime Arab properties in the Old City are increasingly falling into Israeli hands. It's a deeply precarious environment where just getting through a normal Tuesday can feel incredibly tense.
But hey, there is another incredibly hopeful side to this story. Section 4, Grassroots Bridges, Finding Coexistence from the Bottom Up. With top-down political solutions seemingly stalled in endless international debate, we're seeing some inspiring grassroots efforts stepping in. Take Mohammed, the musician from the refugee camp we mentioned earlier. He realized that holding on to rage and singing angry songs just wasn't solving anything. So, he made a conscious, grave choice to shift his entire approach. He started adding Hebrew subtitles to his music videos and actively collaborating with Israeli musicians. His goal is to actively share the Palestinian story directly with the other side, fostering true empathy instead of just generating more anger. It's a powerful reminder that sometimes the most radical act is choosing to build a bridge.
Another brilliant grassroots effort is the Hand in Hand School in Jerusalem. They use a highly structured three-step process to foster coexistence right from childhood. Step 1, place 2 teachers in every single classroom, one Israeli, one Palestinian. Step 2, they intentionally teach both historical narratives equally, in both Hebrew and Arabic. And Step 3, the teachers frequently switch roles to visibly model a truly shared collaborative future for the students right in front of their eyes. As Palestinian history teacher Haneen Hussein beautifully explains, the children learn a profound lesson early on. She says, we don't have to agree, but we do have to listen. And when we listen and we disagree, then we understand that we have a shared future no matter what. They learn that by listening, even when they fiercely disagree, they forge an understanding that they absolutely share a future in this city.
Ultimately, bringing us back to the perspective of Father Nicodemus up on Mount Zion, he notes that it'll take care and tact to help turn this city with all its wounds and scars into a true city of peace. It isn't going to happen overnight, and it will require a continuous, exhausting willingness to see the humanity across both the physical and political walls that currently divide them.
Which leaves us with this final, provocative thought for today's explainer. As the intense battle over the identity and ownership of the city continues, where should we really look for hope? Will the ultimate solution for Jerusalem come from a grand, top-down political deal drawn up by international powers? Or will it come from the daily, grassroots miracles forged by the very people actually living, listening, and learning together on its streets? Think about that the next time you see the city in the headlines. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and keep exploring the complex layers of our world.